Hey everyone, it's me, Nicole, and I'm here to do my birth video for Harper. I want to go ahead and start on Saturday. I did a couple of videos where they were like kind of like in the moment updates, and so if you want to see those, I'll go ahead and put those in the link in a link in the description box below, so you can go ahead and check those videos out. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and start on Saturday. So I'm going to go quickly through this because this information is in those updates. So on Saturday we had a scheduled NST. Well, while I was there, I thought that my water may have broken, and so they went ahead and tested the fluid to see if it was amniotic fluid, and it wasn't. I don't know what kind of fluid it was, but they tested it and it was not amniotic fluid. And so while they were kind of up there testing that fluid, they also checked me for dilation, and I was at 2 centimeters dilated, and he also gave me a membrane sweep, my doctor. And so as all this stuff was going on, my doctor was talking to me, and he kind of started tiptoeing around. He started asking the question, so we're really close to 41 weeks, baby's big, what are you thinking we're going to do? And I said, well, I'm thinking that I'm going to go into labor and have this baby, you know, sometime soon, hopefully. And he said, well, it doesn't look like you're going into labor. And I said, well, then, you know, I know that we're getting to the point where we're going to have to start talking about options. So what would you like to talk about first? Would you like to talk about, sorry if this is getting lopsided. This is my producer, Sadie, sitting next to me, and she's handling the camera angles. So, is that funny? And so I said, you know, are you talking about breaking my water because my bag is bulging, you know, you guys are saying? So are you thinking about breaking my water and getting things started? Are you thinking about maybe putting me on Pitocin? Because even though in the beginning of my pregnancy I was completely against any kind of Pitocin or medication, once you're in that moment where you have to choose between possible induction or definite C-section, you kind of start blurring the, I don't know, I started blurring the lines a little bit. And so I asked him, you know, are you thinking about breaking my water? Are you thinking about induction with Pitocin? Where are we talking about here? And he just kind of shook his head. And I was like, so you're suggesting at this point that a C-section is necessary? And he just kind of was like, and he knows, you know, I think people come to him for VBAC specifically, and so whenever things start kind of looking not so good, I don't think he's very happy about it either. You know, the mom's certainly not happy about it, and he's not happy about it either. So, so whenever he suggested that, I just told him, I said, absolutely not. I'm not ready to concede to a C-section. I know that something's happening within my body. You know, I can feel things revving up for something, and you know, you can give me a membrane sweep. I'm even ready to concede to you breaking my water and getting things started that way. But as far as like starting, or as far as like just like, oh, it's over, let's go for a C-section, no, absolutely not. And so he said, okay, you know, your next appointment's on Monday. This was Saturday. He said the next appointment is on Monday, and you know, we'll talk more then. But he had done a membrane sweep, and this membrane, and I had like 3 or 4 membrane sweeps before this, but this membrane sweep felt different. As soon as he did it, I felt completely different. And so, will you say hi? Can you say hi? You just want to look at me? Hi. Hi. Hello. Hi, sweet pea. And so I was like, oh my gosh, he could have just started something here. We knew that Sadie was going to go with my parents whenever I went into labor, so whenever we decided to go to the hospital or whenever my water broke. And we knew that if my water broke, we were supposed to get to the hospital right away. So rather than waiting for those things to happen, we just decided to call my mom, have her come get Sadie. We packed everything up. Ooh! Somebody's loading up her diaper. We started packing everything up for Sadie, and we had my parents come get her. That way, when we did decide to go to the hospital, we wouldn't have to wait for them to come get her. So that was really nice, and it also helped with my contractions for me to be able to focus and kind of work through them and be able to time them. And I felt bad because I wasn't able to really occupy Sadie whenever I was having contractions, so I was getting a little irritable as well. So she went and hung out with her her grandparent. Robert ended up going to sleep really, really early that night because the night before he had been up all night just having a feeling that something was going to happen that day, and so he didn't sleep that whole night, which stunk because then he had to sleep this night, which actually ended up being alright. He went to sleep I think about 8 or 9, and I told him I would wake him up when things got to the point where I was ready to go to the hospital, or he could just wake up whenever he felt like it. So around 3 o'clock in the morning is whenever I decided to wake Robert up and say, I think that we're ready to go to the hospital. So we went into the hospital and we got kind of like hooked up on monitors, and they want to make sure that you're really in labor before they admit you. And so the nurse came in and she proceeded to let us know that our doctor, who I had gone through several, if you guys have followed my journey, you guys know that I went through several caregivers to get to this specific caregiver, and he had told us that he was definitely going to be there for our birth, that no one else sees his VBAC patients, that he was going to be the doctor that was there that whenever that time came. And the nurse let us know that he was not there that night, that it was his on-call partner. And we had no idea that he had an on-call partner. The on-call partner didn't even deliver at that hospital. He comes in from another hospital, I guess 1 week in a month or something like that. And so she let us know that it was him. Bless you. And then she also let us know that he didn't do VBACs. And so we kind of freaked out a little bit. Whenever the nurse left the room, I turned to Robert and I said, you know what, if that's the case, if that's how he prefers to work, then that's fine. We will leave and we will come back when I am ready to push, because you know, once we get to a certain point, they're not going to be like, okay, no, we're gonna have a C-section. So I was prepared to leave and come back, but the doctor came in and he introduced himself, and we immediately addressed our concerns with him. And he said, who told you that I don't do VBACs? And we said, well, the nurse just told us. And he said, well, they don't really know me very well here. I am only here, you know, a very small amount of time, and sometimes I don't even get called in on my weekends, so they don't know me very well here. Sadie, can you sit still, please? Because we're like making the camera rock, okay? And so we started talking with him, and he was asking us, you know, why is it that you want to avoid a repeat C-section? And, you know, what are we looking for in a vaginal birth? And so we discussed everything with him, and he was shaking his head the whole time. He was just really very personable and very easy to get along with, and he agreed with us on everything that we said, except said that he would be very supportive in helping us have our VBAC if this was the right time. So they went ahead, and as we were talking to the doctor, they were monitoring us, and the nurse came back in. She said, I'm going to go ahead and give you a cervical check. So she checked my cervix, and I was only 2.5 centimeters dilated, so I had only dilated like 0.5 centimeter. And so she said, you know, you should probably go home and, you know, labor some more at home and come back when your contractions are a little bit more closer together and when they're much more intense, because as they were watching me on the monitor, I had been having contractions that were like 7 minutes apart and some that were 3 minutes apart, and they were kind of just not as regular as they would have left. So we left the hospital at probably around 5:30 in the morning, and we stopped by McDonald's and got some pancakes because we figured that I should probably try to eat something, keep my strength up. Not that pancakes are that strengthening, but just to get something in my tummy. And we came home, couldn't really eat anything, climbed in bed, and Robert was trying to give me like counter pressure, because by this time my back labor had started, and let me tell you, the regular contractions were nothing compared to contractions with back labor. I really feel like if I would have just had like regular contractions the whole time, it really would have been much easier. But once that back labor started, wow, that really was difficult. And so he was doing counter pressure with me in the bed, and then I stayed in the bed for like I think about 2 hours and had to get up. I was like, alright, I gotta try something else. So I had an exercise ball, and I put the exercise ball up against the wall and then leaned my back up against it, and then I was like kind of rolling the ball up and down using my back, and that kind of felt really good and massaged my back for a little while. And I was also kind of doing squats because I was rolling the ball up and down, so I was doing squats, so I was hoping that that was helping. Hey, boom, get out of the toilet, you get nasty. Hey,
boom.
Sorry, my cat's in the toilet. Oh, I'm sorry, did I yell? I'm sorry. And so I was doing that, and that helped for a little bit, and then I got to the point where I wanted to go ahead and take a shower, so I went in the shower, and that was heavenly. I filled up the bathtub a little bit, and I got on all fours in the bathtub with the shower raining down, and that was great. I probably, if I could do it over again, I probably would have spent more time in the shower, because that helped a lot. And it really, for my, if we do have another baby, I think I am going to push for a home birth and have that ability to have like a birthing pool and things like that, because that really helped a lot. And so did that, came back out, sat like backwards on one of my wooden chairs with a pillow over the back, and tried to labor that way for a little while. And then eventually, I think this was probably like starting at 8 a.m. and then moving forward. I don't know, you know, when you're in labor you can lose track of all time, but I was not keeping track of how far apart the contractions were at this point. So eventually my parents called, and they asked if we wanted them to come over and bring some food, and just asked if we needed anything. And I had been using the bathroom so much that we were out of toilet paper, and so I asked them to bring over some toilet paper, and they also brought over some food. And they just hung out for a while, and as they were hanging out, I was still in labor, and my mom was actually the one that started timing my contractions. And she said, honey, you know that your contractions are like 3 minutes apart, or like 3 or 4 minutes apart. And I'm like, really? So at that point is when we decided to go back to the hospital. Okay, had to put the baby down for a nap and put a movie on for Sadie so I could get through the rest of this video. It's going to be pretty long. So anyways, we got to the hospital and got all checked in and everything like that. The nurse went ahead and told me to go ahead and take a shower, do whatever I needed to do in there just so that I would feel comfortable. And the water pressure wasn't that great anyways. It was like trickling on my head, and it helped a little bit, but not nearly as much as how nice it was whenever I was at home in my own shower. So anyways, I took a shower. I stayed in there as long as I possibly could. I kept hearing the nurses come in and out, and they were like ready to go, but I was not ready to settle in just yet. So went in and got the shower, stayed in there for quite a while, came out, got in my little hospital gown and everything, and the nurse came in and started doing paperwork with me. And that paperwork took forever because I kept having to breathe through my contractions, and the nurse kept asking me these questions and having me sign the papers, and I'm like, I'm having a contraction. I'm not being rude. I'm just having a contraction, and I can't talk. I can't respond. I can't think right now. So that was just not fun. I had pre-registered and everything, and I thought that I was going to be skipping over all that, but apparently not. So anyways, it was pretty run-of-the-mill labor. Really intense. I was breathing through the contractions. They really sucked. But I knew, I said, you know, they're getting me closer to baby, so everything's good. They checked me when I first got there. I was about 4 centimeters. So 4 or 5 centimeters, I can't remember. But I knew that I had been making progress since the night before. We had came in 12 hours earlier. So I knew that I had been making a little bit of progress at least. And I was convinced that if my water would just break, that would be the turning point, that would be when everything started speeding up. So I was kind of suggesting to the nurses, can the doctor come in and break my water? You know, can we do something to break the water? Because I know that once that happens, everything will start going. And she said, oh, you know, it'll happen. And so, you know, at this point I had been in labor since, this was Sunday around 3:30, 4 o'clock, and I had been in labor for 24 hours already. So I was ready to get things going for sure. But I didn't want to get Pitocin. I just wanted to break those waters, you know, like let's get going here. But I don't think they wanted to call the doctor until, you know, much later on. So just kept on laboring, and Eventually it got to the point where I think it was like 10 o'clock at night, and I had been laboring for so long, and I was in a lot of pain. I was still coping, I was still doing all right, but I was so tired. I just wanted to go to sleep, and I just told myself, I said, I don't know if I'm going to have the strength to push if I am this tired. Like, I am so exhausted and I can't sleep. Like, I'm miserable, and I know labor is not supposed to be fun, but I was just so tired. And so I convinced myself at that point that getting an epidural would be a good idea so that I could get some sleep, and so that I would be able to regain my strength, you know, and push forward. So I called in the anesthesiologist, and he went ahead and placed the epidural, and it wasn't but 5 minutes later that all of a sudden my heart rate dropped and the baby's heart rate skyrocketed. And I was telling, the anesthesiologist was still in the room, and I was like, something's not right, I feel nauseous, I'm so sick, you know, what's going on? And I thought for sure that was going to be it. They were going to wheel me down to the OR, and that was going to be it. I was going to have a C-section. And they gave me some medication to elevate my heart rate, and they, you know, Harper's heart rate came to where it was pretty regular. But I immediately regretted getting the epidural. I started crying. I was so upset, and the anesthesiologist was like, no, you're okay, everything's fine. And I said, no, this is not okay. I messed up. I should have left everything alone. I should have just gone natural. I get emotional. And the anesthesiologist was like, no, everything's fine. And so yeah, shortly after that, my water broke. I could feel it. I felt it gush out. The nurse checked it, and it had meconium in it. So I knew that it was possible that the baby had pooped already. They had told me, you know, once the baby is 40 weeks, they're gonna start pooping in you because they're ready to be out in the world, and so there's probably the baby's already probably pooped. But in the back of my mind, I was like, well, what if whenever I got the epidural, I stressed the baby out, and that's when she pooped, and that was just another additional, you know, concern. And so at that point, I think the nurse was pretty much convinced that I was going to be heading for a C-section. They called in the doctor. I believe, right after I got the epidural. Again, this was all in the time frame of about an hour, I would say. So they already had the doctor coming in. They were already concerned, but I think at this point the nurse was really convinced that I was going to be having a C-section. So the doctor came in, and the nurse immediately, like as the doctor was walking in the door, she was handing me a piece of paper, and I had a feeling that I knew what it was, but I wasn't for sure until the doctor came in and he said, whoa, what are you doing? What are you handing her there? And the nurse just like laughing, and she's like, oh, I'm sorry, doctor. And he said, that might be your plan, and it was a C-section consent form. He said, that might be your plan, but I'm not ready to call it yet. So that made me feel so much better that he had confidence that everything was, you know, doing all right still, and everything wasn't that bad. So he said he wants to keep an eye on the baby and see how she's doing, and that he wanted to check me in about 45 minutes and see how far progressed I had gotten. And so I know that this was probably close to 11:30 because the one nurse was just getting off of her shift and another nurse was coming on. So he checked me after about 45 minutes, and I was, I believe, 7 centimeters dilated. So after my water broke, I really did start dilating and progressing a lot quicker. So checked me after another 45 minutes, and I was at a 9. And so everything was going really well. Robert and I were getting more and more confident. The doctor was so great. He would spend several minutes, like up to half an hour, just in our room talking with us and hanging out. There was really nobody else, no other patients there for him, and I don't think he really knows, you know, the nurses well enough to just sit out at a nurse's station and talk to them. So he was in our room hanging out with us, and that was really awesome. We kind of got to know him a little bit better. He kind of got to know us a little bit better, and we really liked him a lot. And he just continued to check on us and check on the baby. We got to 9 centimeters dilated. We got to, I think I was pretty much fully effaced and everything like that. And the baby was up at -2 station. So the problem wasn't that I wasn't dilating. The problem was that I wasn't descending. The baby wasn't coming down. And so, you know, hindsight being 2020, I was like, you know, if I hadn't gotten this epidural, I could be up, walking around, helping that baby to descend. But the doctor just let me know. He said, you know, he said, the baby is really, really big. From your last ultrasound, we know that the baby is really big. She might not be able to descend. She might be coming down, and she's having those late decels, and she's you know, that's showing that she's stressed, and that may mean that she may not be getting as much oxygen as she's needed, as is needed. And she had been having late decels at this point for about 3 hours. And so he said, you know, he said, I want to see that baby come down. And so he said, I want to see that baby come down. And so, you know, me and Robert are just praying at this point, and I was kind of trying to like stimulate my nipples a little bit to maybe get those contractions to be a little bit stronger, to really get her to go down. I was sitting up as much as I could. They had me rolling from one side to the other. They had me doing all these things to try and get her down. And then he came in and he said, you know, he said, there's a C-section in the OR right now. He said, once they're done, we kind of have to make a decision. He said, if she's not descending, I think that it's really getting to the point where we need to get her out and have this C-section. And so I was really disappointed, but I was still holding out hope. You know, I was progressing so well after my water had broken, and I just figured, you know, that things were progressing and things were going to be okay. And it just got to the point where the C-section was over with, and the nurse came in and she said, we're going to go ahead and prep you now. The doctor just really feels like at this point he wouldn't let his own wife go any further, and his own child, it would endanger that baby. And so he just thinks that it's the right time to go ahead and have the C-section. And by this point, we had gained a really good rapport with this doctor. We trusted him. And you know, I had even gotten to the point where I was feeling pressure in my bottom, and I was, you know, feeling like I was ready to push. And the nurse said, okay, let's check you. So she went ahead and checked me, and she said, I want you to go ahead and give me a push. And so I pushed, and she said, you know, the baby's head is just still up there and she's not descending. And so I knew at that point, you know, that the water, my amniotic fluid had poo-poo in it. And I knew that the baby was stressed out, and she just wasn't coming down. And she could have, if we waited a little bit longer, she could have maybe came down, and maybe we would spend hours pushing her out. But, you know, the nurse explained to me, she said, it's still a ways away, because, you know, your baby's big and she's not descended, and it could still be hours. And having her, you know, in there for hours more with her being stressed, she said it just might not be the best choice. And so by that point, I decided that we were going to go ahead and have a repeat C-section. And I knew at that point that that was what was needing to happen. And I was just ready to meet my baby. But as they were prepping me and getting me ready, I was trying to, you know, I had came to terms with it as I was laboring. I said, you know, whatever happens is I know is what's gonna, I know that whatever happens needs to happen at this point. And I thought I had came to terms with it. They rolled me down into the OR, and I was staring up at the lights, and I was so tired. It had been 39 hours since the painful contractions had started, and I was so tired. I hadn't had any sleep, barely anything to eat, everything, all the drama with the epidural and everything like that, and this is just not what I had wanted. And as I was laying there on the operation table, before they had gotten the sheet up, and even throughout the whole process, I was just like, I wanted to just say, stop, you know, wait. I want to keep going. I want to keep trying. I want to push this baby out. I can do it. I can do it. And I don't want this to be sad, because it's not sad. It is so much of a better experience than I had with my previous delivery. But as I was laying there, I know I can still remember, it's still fresh in my brain how I felt. And it was just a point where I was like, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to end up here. I had done so much research. And I had done everything that I could do. I got the right caregiver, and you know, I thought that I had done everything right, short of having a doula there with me. And here I was again on this operation table, and I just kept telling the nurses around me and telling the doctor around me exactly, you know, I said, I need to see the baby when she's born. I need to see her all gooey. I need to have that connection with her. And so, sorry, this again, I didn't mean for it to turn into this emotional moment, but thankfully the nurses and the doctor knew, because I had had my backup birth plan for cesarean. I had that ready, and I had given that to the doctor. I had told the nurses exactly what I wanted, so they all knew. And I just kind of laid there. They put the sheet up. They started kind of, you know, putting the IV, putting whatever medication in the IV. They asked me, you know, to lift up my one leg, lift up my other leg to see if things were getting numb yet. They were poking me with scissors, and I told them, I was like, I can feel you touching me. I can feel you touching me. And they said, okay, you will be able to feel us touching you. You'll be able to feel any kind of pressure or any kind of as touching you, but you shouldn't be able to feel anything sharp. So let me know if you can feel me poking you with these scissors right now. And so I guess they were poking me, but I couldn't feel it, which I thought was really, really, but no, I couldn't feel anything. The C-section was happening. I kind of just laid back and closed my eyes, and the anesthesiologist was trying to talk to me the whole time and ask me questions, and they said, you know, he was talking to me about, oh, is it a boy or a girl again? Tell me if it's a boy or a girl. Do you have a name for her? Do you have another baby at home? You know, just trying to, you know, converse with me. And at this point, I was just like, not with it. I was like, yeah. And Robert was by my side, and he was answering questions for me. And then it got to the point where I could feel them kind of jiggling the top of my belly, and I knew at this point, and now I'm gonna get happy emotional. I knew at this point that this was gonna be the time when the baby was coming out. They're getting her out, so I was so excited. And I heard her come out, and she was screaming, crying so loud. And the way that he had held her whenever she came out, her head and everything was super, super close to the curtain that they put up in front of you. And I could see her little hand. Oh, sorry, you could see my little jiggle. I could see her hand, the shadow of her hand through the curtain. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's her. And I could see her little head, and I lifted up my head, and I was able to kiss her head through the curtain. And that was wonderful. And then then they brought down the curtain on the one side, and they showed her to me, and she was gorgeous, and she was covered in grossness, and it was wonderful. And I knew that she had just came out of me, and in that moment I felt so connected with her, and it was beautiful. And they said, there she is, you know, she's big, she's beautiful, she's screaming. And they took her away after that, and they went over and cleaned her off and everything like that. Eventually they invited Robert over to come see her, and the whole time I just kept talking to her. I was like, I don't know what I was saying, but I know that I just kept talking to her because I wanted her to hear my voice. And Robert went over there, and they cleaned her off, and they weighed her, and from across the room I hear, all right, she's a big one. She's 9 pounds, 11 ounces. And the doctor was laughing at this point, because I guess on the ultrasound, they never gave me the exact weight, but he said that on the ultrasound that they had estimated 9 pounds 13 ounces, and I had told him how I didn't believe that ultrasounds were accurate, especially at this point in pregnancy, and I had so much fluid, and so I didn't believe that the ultrasound was accurate. And he said, oh yeah, I was kind of joking with me, he said, oh yeah, the ultrasound was so wrong. And so yeah, but it was wonderful and beautiful, and that is where I'm going to end my labor and delivery story, because at this point she is delivered, and at this point the video is super long, and so I will go ahead and film like our first moments / first week video and let you guys know how everything went after that. But I hope you guys enjoyed. It's been an emotional roller coaster. This video has been an emotional roller coaster. The labor was an emotional roller coaster, but it turned out to be everything that I really wanted it to be. I really wanted that vaginal birth. A lot of my videos were geared towards me, you know, really working towards a vaginal birth, and it's something that I really wanted. And who knows, maybe if I would have made a different choice with the epidural, maybe I would have had a little bit more of a chance. Who knows? But as far as coming to the eventuality that I did have to have a C-section, the doctor was so understanding and so he was understanding and considerate about the whole thing, and it was wonderful. And they did everything that I asked them to do. All of my wishes were followed in the delivery room or in the OR, and so it was really just a lot better experience. So yeah, so that's the labor and delivery story. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys want to follow up with us, you may do so by clicking subscribe, and you'll see all of the videos as they're uploaded. You'll go ahead and see those and be able to follow our journey. So once again, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.